taking HIV treatment just once a week maintain the same viral suppression as taking it every day? Today, we are critically appraising the ISLEND-1 trial, which tests whether a once-weekly oral regimen of Islatravir and Lenacapavir can match a leading daily HIV regimen. This is a potentially important shift in HIV care. Not an injection every month or every 2 months, but a tablet taken once weekly. We will examine whether the results are convincing, who they apply to, and what questions remain before this approach changes practice. Modern antiretroviral therapy has transformed HIV from a life-threatening infection into a manageable chronic condition. Single-tablet daily regimens, such as Bictegravir-Emtricitabine-Tenofovir Alafenamide, or Biktarvy, are highly effective, well-tolerated, and convenient compared with older treatment approaches. But convenient is relative. Taking medication daily, indefinitely, can still lead to pill fatigue. This may be mental exhaustion, emotional burden, or simply the challenge of integrating daily medication into a busy and changing life. For some people, the problem is not the number of tablets. It is the number of days they must remember treatment. Long-acting injectable ART has provided an alternative, but injections are not the right choice for everyone. Some patients prefer oral therapy, dislike injections, face barriers to regular clinic appointments, or live in settings where repeated injection visits add strain to an already stretched healthcare system. This brings us to once-weekly oral Islatravir and Lenacapavir, abbreviated ISLN. These drugs have distinct mechanisms and long pharmacokinetic profiles that may support weekly dosing. The promise is compelling: fewer treatment days while preserving the viral suppression that remains the foundation of HIV care. The research question is straightforward and clinically relevant. In adults with virologically suppressed HIV-1 who are already receiving daily BF-TAF, is switching to once-weekly oral ISLN non-inferior to continuing daily Biktarvy for preventing virologic failure? Notice that this is a non-inferiority question, not a superiority question. The goal is not necessarily to prove that weekly therapy is more potent. It is to show that it does not sacrifice an unacceptable amount of antiviral efficacy in exchange for a major potential convenience benefit. The pre-specified non-inferiority margin was 4 percentage points. In practical terms, the weekly strategy would be considered acceptable if it did not increase virologic failure by more than 4% compared with daily Biktarvy. That margin matters. When reviewing any non-inferiority trial, ask whether the margin is clinically reasonable, whether the control is truly effective, and whether the analysis preserves the rigor needed to avoid falsely declaring a less effective treatment acceptable. ISLEND-1 was a multi-center, double-blind, active-controlled randomized controlled trial involving 607 adults at 106 sites in 12 countries. Participants had HIV RNA below 50 copies per milliliter for at least 6 months while taking Biktarvy. The trial excluded individuals with previous Islatravir or Lenacapavir exposure, prior virologic failure, or active hepatitis B infection. Those exclusions increase internal validity by creating a relatively stable population in which efficacy can be assessed cleanly. However, they also narrow the group to whom the findings can be applied. The reported analysis covers 48 weeks, although longer-term 96-week outcomes are still awaited. The average participant was 49 years old, and most were white males from the USA. Participants had lived with HIV for about 14 years and had received ART for about 12 years. Immunologically, this was a stable and healthy cohort with relatively robust CD4 and white cell counts, and only 3.5% had a history of AIDS. Participants were randomized 1-to-1 to weekly ISLN or continued daily Biktarvy. The trial used double dummy blinding. In other words, participants in both groups took daily and weekly tablets with matching placebos as needed. This is an important methodological strength because it reduces bias from knowing which treatment participants receive. The ISLN group received loading doses over the first 2 days, followed by once-weekly oral treatment. The comparator group continued standard daily Biktarvy. This is where we should pause. These were not treatment-naive patients or patients with uncontrolled viremia. They were already doing well on a highly effective daily regimen. So, this study addresses a switch strategy for stable, suppressed individuals, not treatment initiation or rescue therapy. The primary endpoint was the proportion of participants with HIV RNA of at least 50 copies per milliliter at week 48. The investigators used the FDA snapshot algorithm, which is clinically meaningful because it incorporates virologic data alongside discontinuations and relevant missing data. Secondary outcomes included the proportion with RNA below 50 copies per milliliter, change in CD4 T-cell count from baseline, and adverse events. The primary analysis focused on whether the weekly regimen met the 4% non-inferiority margin. This is appropriate because the proposed benefit of weekly dosing is reduced treatment frequency, while the fundamental requirement is sustained viral control. The study also examined resistance, which is particularly important whenever a long-acting regimen is considered. If treatment failure occurs with prolonged low drug concentrations, there may be a risk of selecting resistant virus. That concern is central to interpreting both the promise and the caution around weekly oral ART. Now for the headline result. At week 48, ISLN easily met the pre-specified non-inferiority criterion. The confidence interval remained well within the 4% margin, meaning weekly ISLN maintained virologic control at least as well as daily BF-TAF within the trial framework. For the secondary suppression endpoint, the difference was 1 percentage point in favor of ISLN, but the trial was not designed to claim superiority. There were also no cases of emergent resistance to Islatravir or Lenacapavir. No participant discontinued treatment because of decreased CD4 count or white blood cell count. Efficacy appeared similar whether or not participants had HIV mutations at baseline. These data are impressive. However, only one primary endpoint event occurred overall. That makes the result reassuring, but it also means we have limited information about rare failure patterns, the consequences of missed weekly doses, and resistance risk outside this closely monitored trial population. Safety was broadly similar between groups. Adverse event rates were similar between the two groups, and CD4 count changes were also similar. So at 48 weeks, the safety profile looks reassuring. But this is not the final word. Uncommon toxicities and longer-term immunologic effects cannot be confidently excluded with a trial of this size and duration. This study has several notable strengths. First, the methodology is robust. Randomization, blinding, double dummy treatment, an active comparator, and a pre-specified non-inferiority analysis all strengthen internal validity. Second, the comparator is clinically relevant. Biktarvy is not a weak control. It is a modern, highly effective daily single-tablet regimen with a high barrier to resistance. Showing non-inferiority against this standard is much more meaningful than comparison with an outdated regimen. Third, the study enrolled a multinational and relatively diverse population, including Black and Asian participants, women, and older adults. That improves confidence that the result may be relevant across several populations, although important gaps remain. The first major limitation is participant selection. These patients were already suppressed on Biktarvy, had no prior virologic failure, and demonstrated high adherence in the trial. This is not necessarily the population with the greatest real-world adherence challenges. Second, follow-up is limited to 48 weeks. Longer-term data are needed to evaluate durable suppression, late toxicity, immunologic outcomes, and resistance. 0 failures with ISLN is encouraging, but it leaves us unable to identify which patients may be at risk if failure occurs. Third, the double dummy design masks the true practical advantage of weekly treatment. Participants still had to take tablets on other days, so the study did not fully test whether a genuine once-weekly routine improves quality of life, satisfaction, or real-world adherence. Finally, ISLN does not treat hepatitis B. Active HBV was excluded, and clinicians would need to assess infection, immunity, vaccination status, and need for ongoing HBV active therapy before switching from a tenofovir-containing regimen. So, what does this mean for clinical practice? Once-weekly oral ISLN could become a valuable option for virologically suppressed individuals who want fewer treatment days but prefer oral therapy over long-acting injections. It may be especially attractive for patients experiencing pill fatigue despite otherwise successful treatment. but it should not be assumed to solve every adherence problem. Missing a weekly dose may have greater pharmacologic consequences than missing one daily dose. This trial did not establish effectiveness among people with chaotic routines, inconsistent engagement in care, previous treatment failure, or active hepatitis B. A thoughtful switch decision should include treatment history, potential drug interactions, HBV status, pregnancy considerations, reliable weekly routines, and ability to attend follow-up. Individualization remains the key principle. In summary, ISLEND-1 showed that once-weekly oral ISLN was non-inferior to daily Biktarvy for preventing 48-week virologic failure in adults with suppressed HIV-1. The efficacy result was excellent, short-term safety was comparable, CD4 counts remained stable, and no resistance emerged. But the trial does not yet answer the most practical questions. Will weekly therapy improve real-world adherence, remain safe and durable over years, and be affordable and implementable at scale? Now I would like to hear your view. Which patients in your practice would benefit most from a once-weekly oral regimen? And does reducing treatment frequency from daily to weekly provide enough value to justify concerns about missed doses and long-term resistance? Please leave your answer in the comments, like the video if this appraisal was useful, and subscribe for more evidence-based medical journal club reviews. See you next week.